Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, M&T Bank, Customers Bank, Genova Burns, Witkoff, Greenberg Traurig. Additional support is provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley and Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investments, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, Meridian Capital Group, MHP Real Estate Services, New Banks, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, The Moynihan Group, and These Friends.
Newark, New Jersey, Red Bank, New Jersey. I want to be a lawyer. Nah, I like the horses too. I like the gaming business. I want to be a lawyer, but I really want to be one of the best lawyers. And I want to get involved with horses. And maybe I'm going to train them. Maybe I'm going to buy them. Maybe I'll work with the associations at running tracks and gaming. So today, I have the preeminent lawyer, businessman, visionary, and horseman, Dennis Drazin. Thanks for being...
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell me a little bit about your grandparents, how they arrived in America.
Well, my grandparents both came from Russia. My grandmother came over in 1902 from Kiev on my mother's side. On my father's side, my grandparents always told me they came from White Russia. But they came over and they eventually settled in Newark, New Jersey.
So both sides of the family settled in Newark, New Jersey, is what you said to me.
Yes, correct.
And which side was in the bedding business? The lumber business and
my father's side was Drazin Mattress, and my mother's side was Reliable Lumber. My parents met in Newark and ultimately settled down and moved down to Red Bank, New Jersey.
Now, your father said to me, I believe, was born in 1915?
Correct.
And he became an attorney, and I think it was like 1945 and 1940. He was a member of the JAG. He was in the military.
Correct.
He was a
lieutenant in the Army, Air Force, and a JAG officer. Moved down to Red Bank in 1947.
You know, Red Bank was a different neighborhood, as we were talking about. It was also a neighborhood and the community that really wasn't pro dealing with members of the Jewish faith, correct?
Well, he came down to Red Bank. He and my mother had dealings from the shore. My mother's family had a summer place in Belmar. My father and his Army buddies, came down to the Jersey Shore, and he liked it there. Newark was a place that he grew up in, and he told me many stories about Newark, but he wanted to make a fresh start down the shore. And he opened up a practice in Red Bank on Broad Street and decided that he was going to do a general practice and ultimately specialized in personal injury litigation.
So how did he get involved with personal injury?
The personal injury litigation came to him because there was a train wreck in Woodbridge in the late 50s, and he represented a number of the people who were injured in that train wreck and had good success in getting results for them and gained a reputation for being a personal injury attorney. And we kind of, as a family, built a practice. He probably founded the firm and controlled about a third of the cases in the Tri-County area from the full list of cases, and tried a lot of those cases.
So you were born in Red Bank?
I was born in Long Branch, but
right
my parents lived in Red Bank. And when I was one, when my younger brother was born, we moved to Rumson, New Jersey.
There are two brothers, total of three
Correct.
siblings.
There are three of us. My brother Ronald is a year younger than I, and Brian is 6 years younger. Three of us practiced together in Red Bank.
So let's talk about growing up in Red Bank. The story that you told me with regard to the property that your father wanted to buy one day with the colonel or something like that?
Yeah, Colonel Borden was a landowner in the shore area, Rumson, Red Bank, and he agreed to sell my father a piece of land in Rumson. My father got to the closing, and the colonel was very embarrassed. He said, "There's a deed restriction. We're not allowed to sell to Jews. I'm sorry, I can't go through with the sale." But in fairness, he said, "I have another piece of property where there's not a deed restriction. It's in a nice area in Rumson." And so they purchased a lot on the corner of Bellevue Avenue and Aldwood Lane, about 1.5 acres in Rumson. And they built the home that we grew up in. And my mother still lives there today.
Now, in Rumson, how far was Rumson from Monmouth?
Rumson was about 10 minutes from Monmouth Park.
You said that your father, was he the one who introduced you to the horse breeding business?
Yeah, my father took me out to the racetrack in 1958. He had purchased his first horse. He took me out first in the morning to watch it train, and they put me up on a horse to, kind of gallop around.
Did you ever ask your dad how he got interested in the horses?
Yeah, my father used to watch races and go to races, and he became a student of pedigree. So he would study the pedigrees of horses and the breeding, and he would teach that to me. And over the years, he would point out the famous horses of yesteryear, and I got an interest. I kind of fell in love with horse racing at that young age. Started following him around to the barn and the farms and the racetrack, and it became a passion for me.
And your other passion was practicing law, and you told me that your father came down with gout, like when you were 12 years of age, and you then went to the law offices and you were doing research. What was that? Yeah,
my main passion is the law business. I always loved the law and trying cases, but what happened is that when I was about 12, he had a gout attack. He was home in bed. He needed to do research to put together a brief for a case that he was handling. And he asked my mother to take me down to the office and go look in the books. And he explained to me, how you do legal research. And I went down, and he thought I had a good aptitude for it because I came back very excited about it. Used to love to read, used to love to go through the law books, and would bring him with pride everything he was looking for. And he kind of nurtured and encouraged me to stay in the law business. He never forced us.
No, but he also nurtured and encouraged you in the legal business, the horse business, and then you said to me when we got together, he even taught you a little bit about the real estate business because he invested in real estate at the beginning, right?
Correct. When he was a young man, he got together with his brother and some other individuals, and they started building homes, shell homes back then, and built whole towns, in different areas. And he always kind of told me, I probably should have listened well, but buy real estate, hold it, keep your real estate. And over the years, there were a lot of projects that we got involved in. First, it was a horse farm, a piece of land, a 62-acre piece, and then there was a condominium site on the ocean that we rezoned and ultimately sold. And then there was a project down in St. John, Virgin Islands, where we put up 60 townhouse units. And over the years, he accumulated some real estate and bought and sold. And
when you were growing up as a teenager, you had some buddies and you got involved with ownership of a horse, or you were going to, you know?
Well, we started, you know, my friend and I that you're talking about, he went on to vet school, graduated vet school and became a trainer. But as young kids, we used to hang around the track on the backside. And, you know, in the mornings, it's a whole different world. You go out to the track, the horses are training, the birds are chirping, the sun is coming up, the horses are galloping around. It's a nice, enjoyable place without the gambling side of it. And we learned about horses and we learned about breeding. And we were in a horse barn where there was a famous trainer, Jimmy Kroll. And Jimmy was a Hall of Fame trainer, and he had a horse by the name of Mr. Prospector. So at this point, John and I, money was different back then. Our life savings, you know, at that point, from whatever sources, were probably close to $25,000 each. And Mr. Kroll said to us, sell you a share in this horse for $50,000. He's going to go to stud. And both of our fathers, you know, said, no way, you guys are crazy, don't buy it. You'll lose all your money, we didn't teach you this way. Well, that horse went on to be one of the most famous sires in the world. And in fact, I later bred a mare that I bought to that sire and sold the mare for $1.1 million. But, you know, we said to each other,
timing is everything.
Yeah, we said to each other, let's do this on our own. Let our fathers, you know, do their end of the business, but let's you and I start to buy and sell and train and race horses. And, you know, I guess at the height of the business, we had about 150 horses and bred and sold.
That's later on.
Later on.
So how did you decide to go to Ohio State?
Well, Ohio State was a choice, you know, where in those days it's a lot different than today. My father said to me, you want me to pay? You're going where I want you to go. And his sister had a daughter who was born on the same day as I, about an hour apart. And she had decided to go to Ohio State. So my father said, that's where you're going.
Cousins will be together, right?
Cousins will be together. You'll take care of each other. And it was actually a very good experience. I got a good education at Blair Academy. And when I went to Ohio State, I was in an honors program. I got to take advanced and graduate level courses as a first-year student.
And you graduated in 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And
so how do you then decide to go to Dickinson?
Well, you know, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer.
Home of Jim Thorpe, right?
Yeah. Jim Thorpe was in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. But, you know, basically what happened is that I knew where I wanted to end up. I wanted to be a lawyer, so I didn't want to mess around with a lot of years in college. So I took double the credits so I could graduate early. And again, my father decided, you're going to go to Dickinson. A lot of his friends were judges and lawyers in New Jersey who had graduated from that school. And he felt it would be a good connection.
So you graduate, I believe it's what, 75?
Correct.
75, and then you go to work for a judge, is it?
I went to work for Judge Clarkson Fisher. He was the chief judge in the federal courts in New Jersey, the United States District Court in Trenton at the time. And I spent a year there. And, you know, I had some solicitations to go to the Department of Justice, to the U.S. Attorney's Office. But my father and other lawyers in the firm convinced me that my place is back in Red Bank trying cases. I wanted to try cases because I was my father's son. I got an opportunity to try many cases that a young lawyer normally wouldn't. Normally you start slow, you do research, you second chair, you don't get into the courtroom. But at that time, because of the volume of cases we had, I was out in the court every week with about 20 or 30 cases, just moving them one after another, getting to try them and gain good experience. And what happens is a navigator never distinguishes himself on a calm sea. So on the cases that they force you to try that are difficult cases, once you bang an insurance company for big verdicts, it becomes much easier to settle cases down the road.
So some of your major involvement in clients happens to be in the horse business, right?
Correct.
Let's talk about that.
So the way it tied together is, as part of my legal practice, I always fought for consumer rights and trying to protect the people that couldn't protect themselves. So in the Trial Lawyers Association, we had a PAC, a political action committee, where you lobby and advocate for issues that are important to the public. And we prided ourselves in trying to do things that were in the public interest. So through that experience, I learned that the way that politics worked, at least in this limited sense, was you need to educate legislators in order to give them the ammunition so they can help you. So if you just sit there, and you don't try to educate them so they understand what people need, then nothing happens. But if you fight for the consumers, or you do things that would educate people to make things safer so that baby blankets don't burn and kids don't get injured in cribs and cars aren't, unsafe, that you deal with crashworthiness or products liability or whatever the case may be, then the politicians, have the knowledge to go and pass laws to help the public. So the horsemen, approached me to try and take the skills and knowledge that I was demonstrating in the law field to the arena of horse racing. They felt that they needed to have a spokesman to go to Trenton and to try and educate the legislators about all the needs of the horse industry, which are great. It's a $1 billion industry in New Jersey, which supports 13,000 jobs, that preserves thousands of acres of open space. And by educating the legislators about why we needed to preserve horse racing, I was able to serve the interests of the horsemen and the public. So I brought those skills to the horse arena, where I first was their legislative counsel, then their general counsel, then I was their president for a number of years. I was appointed to a number of blue ribbon panels by several governors. I then ultimately became the chairman of the New Jersey Racing Commission and served there until Governor Christie decided that he wanted to privatize the racetracks.
At this time, New Jersey had very few you had the Meadowlands, you had Monmouth, you had Freehold.
And Atlantic City. So the governor decides to privatize this, and what happens? Well, Freehold and Atlantic City are privately owned, but Monmouth Park and the Meadowlands, which are the two premier tracks in New Jersey, the governor decided that I'm not going to spend taxpayers' money to support these industries anymore, and we need to find buyers to people to lease the racetrack. He didn't sell them, he leased them. And he said, otherwise, I'm going to close them down because the state just can't afford to waste the taxpayers' money. That's the sentiment that was out there at the time. So what happened is a gentleman by the name of Jeff Corral, who I think you know, decided that he was going to take on the Meadowlands racetrack. And a gentleman by the name of Morris Bailey, who I think you also know, decided that he was going to take over Monmouth Park. Jeff made his deal, but Morris eventually decided that he was going to pass and tried to pass the deal on to the horsemen. And ultimately, I resigned from the Racing Commission to lead the horsemen in taking over the lease of Monmouth Park.
For my viewers, what do you mean by the horsemen?
The horsemen are the owners and trainers of horses that run at racetracks, and it includes not only the owners and trainers, but the breeders of horses in New Jersey. And the horsemen in New Jersey, have wide tentacles, so to speak, because when New Jersey's not open, they go off to New York or Florida. And in this tri-state area, the Jersey horsemen run horses, Pennsylvania, New York, And, you know, we're
now,
part
you were
of
influential to bring the Breeders' Cup to New Jersey?
Yeah, the Breeders' Cup is one of the premier races, the national championship, so to speak, of horse racing. And we made a pitch here in New Jersey to bring it to Monmouth Park. We were successful, and the Breeders' Cup came. It was a wonderful, you know, event, except it rained, and that dampened it a little bit. But we were very successful, and it was an important stride for New Jersey. The only thing bigger is the fact that on August 2nd, we've landed American Pharaoh, who's
the
Triple Crown winner
to race in Monmouth Park.
And he's going to draw about 60 to 70,000 people there. And we're very grateful to Mr. Zayat and Bob Baffert for bringing their champion to Monmouth Park.
Now, when we talk about the horsemen, in essence, you're a horseman too.
I am.
Okay, because as you said earlier in our interview, you've trained, bought, and studied horses your entire career.
Correct.
So which aspect of the horse business would you say is your major?
You know, at this point in my life, I guess I'm a visionary that tries to preserve and advance racing in New Jersey. And I continue to breed, I continue to race, and I lend my wisdom and vision to the horsemen by being their advocate and their advisor.
As I rub my crystal apple, in addition to the horse business, the racing business and the business of creating jobs for 13,000 people in a major industry over there, part of your role has also been involved in the gaming business.
Yes.
So let's talk about the gaming involvement today. Gaming, casino gambling, and all the rest.
The gaming interest, has been a long-term interest. In my past, I've been the part owner of a High Lie in Milford,
Connecticut, and then you said
a casino in Moscow. But what happened really is in the late '90s, I started an effort for the horsemen, trying to expand casino gaming outside of Atlantic City and bring it to Monmouth Park in the Meadowlands. The feeling was that the surrounding states were moving in that direction, and we needed to compete. And in New Jersey, there was a monopoly in Atlantic City. And in order to move an expansion of gambling, you basically need three people. You need a governor to support it, an assembly speaker, and a Senate president. And although many, many years we had 2 out of the 3, we never had all 3 because the Atlantic City casino interests always controlled one of the 3 key pieces. So we were never able to accomplish that, but the legislature, because we educated them, gave us other tools in the interim to try and compete. So they gave us the right to develop off-track wagering systems. So there were 15 OTW licenses that were part of the scheme to enhance racing. Then there was account wagering, which is betting on the internet. And there's a company that runs that for us. We manage it for the Sports Authority, but we have a company, TVG, that actually manages it at this point in time. So that brings in other revenues. The Woodbridge site is the most successful OTW in the country. Does about $90 million a year.
Why is it so successful? Because OTW in New York City was a failure.
OTW in New York City was a failure because they were poorly run and they were like little dives. But Woodbridge is an upscale facility, a lot of carols, a lot of TVs, a lot of betting opportunities, and it provides restaurant dining and liquor. So, it's a place to go socialize. And it was very popular under our leadership. The account wagering system grew to about $180 million a year. So it's been very successful for us. And we're in the process of developing more OTWs. Last night I was in Hillsborough Township where we've constructed an OTW. We're seeking Racing Commission approval, and that's pending. We have a system that was given to, again, through the legislature
and
to
this
open
for the
bars
owners.
and restaurants.
This
is for the racetrack operation. So Monmouth Park has rights to certain territories. Meadowlands has rights to certain territories. We have agreements on a joint venture with Mr. Corral on those. And then Freehold and Atlantic City have certain rights to the southern part of the state. But that's thrived for us, and really what we need is casino gaming, and that's been more difficult. What happened in New Jersey is that in the past year, the governor and Senate president had agreed for a 5-year moratorium 5 years ago on expansion of gaming because they wanted to help Atlantic City, and Atlantic City deserves to be helped and preserved. But there comes a time when we see that the gaming business from our people in New Jersey are going to New York and going to Pennsylvania, and if you go to the parking lots of those casinos, 50% of the license plates are New Jersey.
State, right.
So there's a push to expand, and the governor has seen the light of day and said, I'm okay with it. And the Senate president is looking for the right timing to do this. So this year is not possible. I believe that next year there will be a ballot question for the voters to vote on New Jersey about expansion of gaming outside of Atlantic City to northern Jersey. They're looking at the Meadowlands in Jersey City.
Let's talk about family. A couple of years ago, you got married. You were a bachelor for a long time, and your wife, her name is
Nona Balabanth.
Nona is also was in the breeding business, right?
Yeah, she's an attorney, and she was the president of New Jersey Breeders, and she has a couple of brood mares and horses.
And you have children, right?
We have 2 girls, Ariel and Liana. Ariel is 18. She's about to start American University next year. Liana is going into her sophomore year at Rumson Fairhaven. And they are both delightful kids. They part-time work at the racetrack, Ariel in the restaurant, and we have a miniature golf there, so she helps operate the caddy shack.
And they also...
And Liana does the same thing.
And they also are in the horse business, a little bit riding or...
They come and they watch.
So for the kid who could have stayed in Newark if your father didn't make a decision in 1947, okay, you've built a prominent, you and your brothers have built a very prominent law firm in Red Bank with 2 other offices.
We have 4 locations altogether. We have 12 attorneys, and with the support staff, it's about 50 people. It's a very thriving firm that handles a general practice, but our main focus is on personal injury litigation. And fortunately, we had a father with foresight that founded the firm and gave us the opportunity to develop it.
And his boys are following up in his footsteps and doing a great job. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.